Yo, what's going on guys? Cultofmush back at it with another video. The Battlefield 1 official system requirements have been revealed and I want to go over them. Honestly, these system requirements look a bit lower than I was anticipating, but I guess that's a good thing. Seems to me that a lot of people with even lower end PCs are going to be able to run this game pretty well, so let's get right into this with minimum CPU requirements. So for minimum CPU, on the AMD side, you're looking at an AMD FX-6350, and on the Intel side, you're looking at a Core i5-6600K. Now, obviously, the i5-6600K is a much better CPU than the 6350. The 6600K is over twice the price of the 6350. But I guess what they're saying here is that if you have a Core i3, you're going to be very limited with Battlefield 1, since that is only a dual-core CPU. Yes, it does have hyper-threading, but nonetheless, it is a dual-core CPU. And the FX-6350, while it's not a world-beater of a CPU by any means, I've seen it as the minimum AMD CPU requirement for a lot of higher-end games, and I imagine that it will be able to run Battlefield 1 pretty well. At the same time, when developers do have the FX-6350 listed as minimum, I've noticed that the i3 can also handle those games pretty well, given what an i3 is. For the recommended CPU, you're looking at an AMD FX-8350 or an Intel Core i7-4790. Again, the 4790 is a better CPU than the FX-8350. The 8350 is an 8-core CPU, while the i7-4790 is a quad-core CPU with hyper-threading. I think all that insists is that if you do have a higher-end CPU, BF1 will take advantage of that, so that's nice. For minimum RAM requirement, you're looking at 8GB of RAM, while recommended is 16GB of RAM. Nothing too shocking there. I've seen a lot of these next generation games move to the 8 and 16GB recommendations, and at this point, if you're building a new gaming PC, you're getting at least 8GB of RAM, and more often than not, if you're building anything over $700, a lot of times you're just gonna pick up 16GB of RAM because it is so cheap. I am one of those people that is still running 8GB of RAM. Honestly, I should upgrade because the rest of my rig is pretty high-end. I'm just sticking around with 8GB of RAM because I haven't seen too many limitations with games. But as more and more games start recommending 16GB of RAM, that is an upgrade I think a lot of people should be looking into. Moving on to what you guys care about, the graphics cards. For the minimum graphics card on the AMD side, you're looking at an AMD Radeon HD 7850 2GB and a GeForce GTX 662GB on the nVidia side. Those are fairly old video cards. The 660 and 7850 I believe released back in 2012, so 4 years ago. If you have something like a GTX 960, a 760, an R9 270, 280, 370, 380, you get the idea. Looks like you're going to be able to run BF1 pretty decently. For recommended GPU requirement, I was kind of surprised by this. Maybe I shouldn't be. On the AMD side, you're looking at a Radeon RX 484GB, and on the nVidia side, you're looking at a GeForce GTX 1063GB. Now, those are very powerful GPUs, but to me, Battlefield has always been one of those higher end games, but to be perfectly honest, it's not like Battlefield 1 is at a whole nother graphical level than previous Battlefield games, so I shouldn't find this too shocking. And after all, the RX 480 and the 1060 are very powerful GPUs, and while the 480 I do consider that a $200 video card, it isn't a $200 video card, it was just supposed to release at that price, and the 1063GB isn't a $200 video card either, so this isn't that surprising. But for some reason, I did think this game was gonna list like a 1070 as recommended, but that's pretty good that it isn't. Finally, for hard drive space, you're looking at 50GB of free space, which isn't too much at all. I know that's kind of surprising when we're saying 50GB isn't a lot of space, but really for next generation games, 50GB is on the lower side. You've been seeing games needing 60, 70, 80, even 100GB in some cases with like the Microsoft games in Quantum Break. So 50GB isn't too crazy, but keep in mind, Battlefield 1 is a game that's probably going to have a lot of DLC, so that 50GB may increase over time after you download all the map packs and whatnot. So yeah, there are the system requirements for Battlefield 1, nothing insane. I think the majority of people, if you have a decent PC, and if you're looking to buy Battlefield 1, you probably have a decent PC, you're going to be able to run it pretty well. When I played the alpha, I thought the game ran very smoothly considering it was an alpha, and I expect the final game to do even better. But I remember with Battlefield 4, the beta actually ran better than the final game, so I'll let you guys know how this game runs when it's officially released. Hopefully it runs well. That's going to wrap up this video. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can hit the like button. If not, you can dislike. If you have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.